Get ready for a clash of titans. We have two of the most creative, aggressive players of their generation, Alexei Shirov and Alexander Morozevich, in a rapid battle featuring a razor-sharp French defense. Shirov opens with pawn to e4, and we get the French defense. White advances with e5, creating the characteristic locked pawn chain, and black's knight reroutes to d7. White builds a massive pawn center, while Morozevich prepares to undermine it from the flank. Both sides develop their pieces, setting the stage for a complex middle-game fight. And here we go. White launches a classic kingside pawn storm with knights jumping towards the black king. Morozevich responds in kind, pushing hard on the queen side. It's a race. The position is on a knife's edge, and here black makes a crucial decision. He continues his queenside plan, but this neglects the firestorm brewing on the other side of the board. A much safer path was available. The queen tucks back to e8. After bishop to e2, black can simply take the knight on g5. White recaptures, and pawn to g6 solidifies the kingside, winning material. But in the game, Morozevich pushes the pawn to b5, a mistake that allows white's attack to become seriously dangerous. Shirov brings his queen to c2, piling on the pressure. It's a strong move, but not the most precise, letting a little of his advantage slip. And black captures on g5 with the bishop. This is another inaccuracy. Taking with the h-pawn would have created more problems for white to solve. White recaptures with the h-pawn on g5. A good move, but again, not the killer blow. Taking with the f-pawn would have led to a sequence winning a full rook. After that tactical flurry, things calmed down slightly. Black pushes on the queen side, trades pawns, and white takes a moment to improve his king's safety, walking it over to f2. Black is under pressure and needs to find active defense. Instead, he plays a quiet rook move that hands the initiative right back to Shirov. There was a much better way to organize his pieces. The knight could hop to e7. After bishop to c1, the queen swings to a5, and if knight to h5, pawn to g6 holds everything together. Back in the real game, black plays the passive rook to e8, and this allows white to immediately restart the attack, and Shirov pounces. The knight lands on h5, the g-pawn marches forward, and the pressure on the black king is mounting once again. Morozevich scrambles to defend. Now white unleashes a flashy sacrifice, but it's not entirely sound. He's letting a lot of the pressure go for a direct attack that can be defended. A quieter move would have been much stronger. The simple bishop to c1 was best. If bishop to a6, white takes on h6. Then, after pawn to g6, the knight invades on g7, and white is simply winning a pawn. Instead of that slow squeeze, Shirov dives in with knight to f6 check. A spectacular but imprecise sacrifice that gives black real chances. The knight must be taken, and white's pawn recaptures on f6, ripping open the files in front of the black king. And what a move from Morozevich. He finds knight takes f6, the one and only recapture that keeps him in the game. Anything else, and the position would have been lost on the spot. Shirov's pawn takes the knight on f6, clearing the e-file for his queen. Incredible defense. Morozevich finds knight to g6, another fantastic and only move desperately holding the fortress together. The key idea is that if white attacks, rook takes the pawn on h6, the queen can recapture on f6. Rook to h1 comes next, and bishop to d7 completes the defense. White pushes the g-pawn to g5, and black is forced to capture, opening even more lines toward his king, and Shirov's pawn takes back on g5. A fantastic move, and the only one that keeps the attack decisive. The pressure is immense. Black pushes the pawn to e5, a desperate but necessary attempt to create some breathing room and counterplay. The white rook seizes the h6 square, looming over the black king's position. Another brilliant defensive find. Morozevich pushes the pawn to e4, a fantastic resource to block the lines and prolong the fight. Here's the idea. If bishop to h5, the knight comes to f8. After rook to h1, the queen can jump to d6, and black is still hanging on. Shirov doubles up, bringing his other rook to h1, creating a terrifying battery on the h-file. But here, black's defense finally cracks. Rook to e6 is an error, placing the rook on a less effective square and allowing white to tighten the screws. And the bishop comes to h5, targeting the critical knight on g6 that's holding black's position together. Desperate times. Black sacrifices the exchange with rook, takes pawn on f6, check, trying to muddy the waters, but Shirov is ice cold. He simply plays pawn takes rook on f6, correctly judging that the attack is unstoppable. And the point is this: if queen to d6, the king steps to g2. The queen recaptures on f6, but queen to f2 follows, winning a piece and the game. Black gives a check on f6, the king steps away, and after a few more moves, Shirov eliminates the key defensive knight. White is now completely winning. Morozevich's queen lands on f3, trying to create some last-ditch threats. And here, a huge mistake from Shirov. With the win in his grasp, he plays a king move that gives black a shocking chance to save the game. The correct move was a simple capture. Bishop takes the pawn on f7 with check. Black recaptures. The rook swings to h3. After queen to f6, rook to h8 check would have been decisive. But instead of that, Shirov plays king to d2, a serious inaccuracy that suddenly gives black a path to equality. An incredible moment. Morozevich has a golden chance to punish the mistake and completely turn the tables. But in the heat of battle, he misses the saving move and blunders right back. The only move was king to g7. After bishop takes e4, pawn takes bishop back, rook to g1 check, and bishop to g4 would have won material for black, but he missed it. In the game, he plays bishop to g4 and the opportunity vanishes. White is winning once again. Shirov checks with the bishop to h7. It's not the fastest path to victory, but it keeps him firmly in control. Black's king runs to g7. White repositions his rook to h2, and black pushes a pawn, desperately trying to create a shield. And now, a thunderbolt. Bishop takes pawn on f5, a stunning and brilliant sacrifice from Shirov to shatter black's defenses for good. Here's the beautiful idea. If the bishop takes back on f5, the queen swings to c1. After a rook move, the a-pawn pushes, and black's position collapses. There's no choice. The queen is forced to take the bishop on f5, and now the white queen swings all the way to a4, launching the final decisive attack from the other side of the board. Black gives a hopeful check with rook to b2, but this only helps white's king find a safer square. Another brilliant move. Shirov calmly steps his king to c1, ignoring the threat to his rook and sealing the victory. A fantastic display of confidence. Black captures the now irrelevant rook on h2, but white's queen check on a7 is devastating. The king is forced to g6, white recaptures the rook, and the net is closing. The queen delivers a killer check from b6, forcing the black king onto an even more dangerous square. And this is the final mistake. Black's king steps into a forced checkmate, ending this incredible fight. He could have resisted a bit longer, though the position was hopeless. The queen could have tried to block on e6. Then, after queen to b8, the king flees to f7, king to b2, and queen to c8, fighting on. But in the game, Morozevich plays king to h5, and this walks directly into a beautiful mate in 2, and Shirov delivers the final blow, queen to h6 check. It's all over now. The king is forced to g4, and the queen takes the bishop on h3, which is checkmate. And at this point, Morozevich resigned. A spectacular attacking victory for Alexei Shirov. Black saw there was no escape from the checkmate because of this beautiful finish. The king would be forced to g4, and queen takes the bishop on h3 is checkmate.